What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel.
What's going on, Rob Core, man? Let me tell you something, man. Injustice. Man, it's like y'all don't hear me. Injustice is amazing. Dude, this story is so good. This story is incredible. My dog is sleeping on whatever the bubble wrap. My dog is sleeping on bubble wrap right now. So, whenever I get really excited, I just like say things. I'm just like, yeah, it's bright outside. Like I just say things and it gets kind of crazy. But Injustice is so solid. And I feel like year 2 might be the best. I mean, I've heard year 3 is the best, but I feel like year 2 might be the best. With regards to the story so far, again, what we do is we basically follow Black Canary, right? I mean, check out the last video. We did it literally like 8 hours ago. Check out the last video. We talked about how like Jim Gordon and his various crew had gotten a hold of the super pills that were developed by Lex Luthor. The pills themselves, the information inside on how to duplicate them, have been really copied by Batman, sent to Barbara Gordon as Oracle. She basically began the process of synthesizing them, and the result is that Jim Gordon has his own super cop team now with super strength. But we pick up with Black Canary, and this part of the story is beautiful because of course she goes to the lair of Green Arrow. Because remember, Oliver Queen was killed by Superman, one of the many casualties of the conflict so far, and Black Canary holds this like grudge against him because of that. But for her, she has to travel back to the residence of Green Arrow and grab a few things. The problem is she didn't know, or at least she wasn't aware that Harley Quinn was still going to be here. In her mind, Harley Quinn was going to be gone. Keep in mind, Black Canary knew that Oliver Queen had Harley Quinn within, his arrow cave or whatever it is that he calls it, the quiver. The quiver is what it needs to be called. She knew that Harley Quinn was in here. The problem is when she gets there, Harley Quinn of course has fuzzy slippers and immediately attacks her. Now what unfolds, it's really just kind of a mistaken situation in the sense the Black Canary sees a villain. In addition to this, she sees the sidekick of the Joker. But in the middle of all this, Black Canary literally stops the fight in the middle of all this and goes and throws up. Now, of course, the response of Harley Quinn is like, are you okay? And then it dawns on her, oh my God, it's morning sickness. Now, this is so cool because, I mean, we know that Black Canary is preggers, right? Like we knew that she was preggers. But the problem with this is Harley Quinn, like we get this super sad moment because Harley Quinn's like celebrating. She's like, yeah, I can't wait. Like you're gonna balloon up, you're gonna get large, all that kind of stuff. You're gonna start eating for 2. And it's just like Harley Quinn is basically recalling all the instances of what it's like to be pregnant, and even goes as far as to say, I remember how hard it is. And this is when we learn Harley Quinn's a mom. Harley Quinn has a daughter. And it's just like, wow, like dude, mind blown. I was just like, what? And it's like the saddest thing ever because Harley basically gave up her daughter Lucy to let her daughter go live with her sister because of the fact that Harley Quinn had such a attachment to the Joker. And that's what makes this so sad is we knew the Joker's a crazy guy. The Joker is the last guy that you hitch your carriage to. But for Harley Quinn, she couldn't see herself being with anybody. And this shows us the lengths that she went to make the Joker the most important person in her life. She sacrificed everything. Friends, family, her own child. She walked away from her daughter to stay a part of the Joker's life. Now, we don't really get too far into this. We don't really get too far into like the personal life of the story outside of this, but it shines a beautiful revelation onto Harley Quinn's character because we always saw her as just like the right hand of the Joker. Harley Quinn and the Joker would go in, they'd have some banter, they'd, make fun of people or whatever. They'd kill some folks and that would be it. Like, you would be like, yeah, the Joker's craziness, all that kind of stuff. But this shines like a whole nother light on her character because it makes her so human. Now, at this point, we transition over to the arrival of Guy Gardner. Of course, Guy Gardner showing up here on Oa after the midst of this conflict that we saw in the last video. And it's basically him saying, guys, we gotta do something. We have to do something. And the reason why is because Sinestro has joined forces with Superman. Now, for the Guardians of the Universe, this is almost the worst case scenario, right? Because you gotta remember, there's the whole aspect of the Sinestro Corps and basically feeding on fear. This is really doubly so because of the fact that Superman is basically ruling a planet filled with people who are moderately scared. Now, they're not nearly as scared as they're going to be, but the Guardians of the Universe are like, oh my God, like if the Sinestro Corps are allied with Superman, what if they make him a member of the Sinestro Corps? Superman with a lantern ring of any kind would make him virtually unstoppable. And so in response to this, the Guardians are like, okay, we have to make battle preparations. But the other other half is Guy Gardner says Superman is not without his own challengers. But this is why Guy Gardner shows up here, is because he says, look, Batman has his forces, but they all pale in comparison to the Green Lantern Corps. What we need is the Green Lantern Corps to get here. We need a full contingent, because remember, with the elite squad of the Green Lanterns showing up here, they were basically incapacitated by the Sinestro Corps. It was basically Superman going to the Green Lantern Corps and saying, all of you have to remove your rings. If you don't, we're going to kill you. And so because this elite guard is basically gone, it's Guy Gardner going back to the Guardians of the Universe saying, we need to grab everybody else, just everyone. If they have a ring, bring them to Earth. It's just this all hands on deck, hit the panic button, do whatever you need to do. We gotta get folks there. Now, at this point, we jump back over to Jim Gordon. Now, despite having no powers to speak of outside of this, super pill that Jim Gordon has, I think he's one of the best parts of this whole, of Injustice here too. It shows the lengths that an average man will go to, but it also shows us how capable and how heart-wrenching James Gordon's situation is, because remember, he's dying of cancer. Now, the kicker about all this is that with Bullock, with Renee Montoya, with all these people, all these cops having these super pills, Jim Gordon is so smart. Now, I would say a lot of this is because of his detective experience, but I would say some of it's even because of the fact that he's basically fought, well, at least he's operated alongside Batman. He's never really fought alongside Batman, but working alongside Bruce Wayne has offered Jim Gordon a measure of what it means to be stealthy, to have guile, to basically operate, in the realm of espionage, to not just go in guns blazing, but to go in with no one knowing that you're there. And so because of that, he basically tells Bullock, he tells Renee, go do whatever you need to do, stop them as best you can, but those individuals that you confront, do not let them know that you have superpowers. No one needs to know that you have superpowers. If they find out, they'll relay their information back to the Justice League and Superman will learn that you have superpowers here. We cannot risk that. We have to take Gotham City back. We have to bring it back under our control. And the reason why they have to do that is because they need a rallying point. Keep in mind, Batman's forces are scattered to the wind. They're operating everywhere they can. Aside from Oracle having the space of operations, there's no central point for them to operate out of, aside from maybe the Tower of Dr. Fate outside of space and time. But it's literally launching this multifaceted effort against Superman all at the same time. The problem with this is that Harvey Bullock's, his efforts get the best of him, but in the end, he's still able to take one of these guys out. Of course, where the second cop basically races off, and it's kind of Tom Taylor messing with us like, oh man, one got away, they're gonna find out about their powers. That doesn't happen. Instead, James Gordon comes out of nowhere and just clotheslines the hell out of the guy. Now, this is why I love James Gordon, because what happens is like Harvey Bullock starts reading this guy his rights. James Gordon says, no, this guy is some super soldier cop that was brought in by Superman and given superpowers by way of a pill. That guy is not a cop. That guy is an invading army. He's part of an invading army. They don't get rights. They don't get the Miranda rights. You take them and you throw them in a cell. And that's it. They're not citizens here, all right? They go where we tell them to go. They do what we tell them to do. Now, this is so cool because it's like the powerlessness that Jim Gordon felt coming to bear, because you got to keep in mind, it was basically an enemy occupying force showing up in Gotham City, telling people what it is they could and could not do. Jim Gordon felt powerless until he was given the means to fight back. And then now that he has this power, he basically responds by, we have to take Gotham City back. Now, what Tom Taylor does is he basically jumps forward around 7 months. And the reason why he does this is because it allows him to fill in the gaps of a few things, but it also allows him to basically keep the story moving, to keep things action-packed. And the reason why is because if he attacked this aspect into Injustice where it's like, and now the planning phase, it would throw off the flow of the entire story. Right now, the story's fluid, organic, it's water in a cup. It's amazing the way it goes right now. If suddenly it was just like this planning phase, well, then it would be like, well, this sucks, and then people would lose interest. But by jumping forward 7 months later, we also have Tom Taylor giving us just this bright spark of happiness, the birth of Connor Hawke, the birth of Oliver Queen's son through Black Canary. And of course, this is really cool because it's her, of course, sad because of the fact that Oliver Queen's not here, but it's us as the reader just like, yeah, his legacy lives on. The legacy of Oliver Queen keeps going. And that's why this works so well, because with Injustice, he was kind of like this shining moment for everybody who was a fan of any character in DC. If you were a fan of Oliver Queen, you got to see him die like I guess die as close to a hero as a person can get when they're being beat to death, but he basically got to die like a damn hero. When it came to Superman, people who were like, I want to see a darker Superman, got that. When it came to Batman, like I want to see how hardcore Batman is when he has to go against Superman, we got that. We got all of these different aspects of characters that we all know and love. The kicker about all this is we switch over to the arrival of Despero. Now, Despero is a really, really cool character, and I want to say he appeared in 1960. Of course, this was during the era where you had Mort Weisinger, and I want to say he was an Otto Bender creation, but I'm not going to swear that. But this is during the era where Mort Weisinger was just expanding the Superman mythos, adding something new every 6 months. And Despero was a guy who basically has the ability to kind of feed on psionic energy, but what this does is it basically powers him. And so there were instances in the publication history of his character where he was stronger than Superman. Now, of course, Sinestro sees this and it's like, dude, if this guy basically beefs himself up in power, if he starts, juicing himself up on all this psionic energy, he'll crush me, he'll crush the Sinestro Corps, he'll crush Superman, he'll literally crush everybody that could basically bring order to Earth. And even if it's only by a measure of circumstance, the goals of Batman will be achieved and the Sinestro Corps will be destroyed. He's like, I've got to take this guy out. Now, again, this feeds into the manipulative nature of Sinestro, right? And that's why we love him. That's why we love Sinestro, right? That's why we love Sinestro, because he is so manipulative, so conniving. When he's facing off against Despero, he's basically going against him and talking like, hey, you're a bad guy, you can't be here, we're trying to restore order, we're trying to keep the peace. And then while Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart are on their way there, Sinestro uses his ring to seize the hands of Despero and makes Despero put his hands around Sinestro's neck. Well, then from here, it looks like self-defense, right? I mean, Sinestro uses his ring, snaps the neck of Despero and is like, hey guys, look, I didn't have a choice. The guy tried to kill me, you saw him. He had his hands around my neck, you saw him, he was trying to kill me. And Hal Jordan, all they know is what they saw. They can't tap in to Sinestro's ring's actions at this point in time. All they know is what they saw. And so in response, they're like, well, I mean, I guess we have to trust him. If Sinestro says he's really here to work on our behalf, if he says he's really here trying to help make a better place, which he's been doing for the last 7 months alongside Superman, then I guess he really is a good guy. Now, the reason why this works is because this is Sinestro with the long con. This is Sinestro saying, look, this is how we play the game. The war isn't won in a day. The war is won over the course of 1,000 days. And if we want to be able to win, we've got to be able to go through that 1,000-day win, unlike the Falcons who blew a 25-point lead during the Super Bowl. So what we do here is we switch over to Harley Quinn. I was rooting for the Falcons, by the way. We switch over to Harley Quinn. Now, we basically have, of course, her celebrating the baby of Oliver Queen. And it's funny, because she brings all kinds of little trinkets, a fake mustache, but she also brings a muzzle. And this is funny because, Black Canary's response is like, it's a baby. Like, why would a baby need a muzzle? I'm not going to put a muzzle on my child because it's crying. And Harley Quinn's like, yeah, but you have the ability to emit a sonic screech when you scream. Like, what if your kid has that power? And then Black Canary's like, yeah, that's a good point. I'll take the muzzle. And it's these small little moments in the story. That's why Harley Quinn is so refreshing, because if she wasn't there, it would be so dark and so drab. It would be cool, but it would be so dark and so drab. And it's kind of funny. The sidekick of the Joker, the person who started this whole thing, really is kind of turned into like the highlight of the story. That's why so many people read Injustice and they're like, yeah, Harley Quinn. Like they absolutely love Harley Quinn's character because she's just like this funny little ray of comedy in a story that would have otherwise been extremely dark. Now, from here, we basically pick up with battle formations. This is Guy Gardner returning to Earth with the Green Lantern Corps and says, hey, look, we basically have to enact our plan. The plan that Batman's been setting in motion for the last 7 months, the plan that Commissioner Gordon, the plan that you, the plan that me, the plan that we've all been setting in motion for the last 7 months. We have to get this orchestrated. And the reason why is because we have one shot at this. And what we find out is that Guy Gardner's brought Mogo, the living planet. Now, of course, we'll find out what this is capable of, but it's so awesome because once they get here, once they arrive within the orbit of Earth, of course, the Sinestro Corps immediately responds. Now, with this whole thing, with this whole situation going down, Superman, Sinestro, they're watching these events unfold. And it's this realization that there's no turning back. There's nowhere to go from here. At the same time, it's, Black Canary, it's Zatanna, it's Oracle, all of them realizing this massive battle is going to take place. This massive battle is going to happen. And so what they do is they basically convene on Batman. Now, of course, Batman is still learning how to walk. Remember, Superman broke his back. Batman's still learning how to recover over the course of these last 7 months. And that's one of the cool things here too, is Tom Taylor doesn't say, yeah, man, Batman learned how to walk again in 3 days. He doesn't say that. He says, look, it takes months of rehabilitation just for Batman to get to the point where he can try to walk on his own using some kind of aid. At the same time, everybody else here is like, look, man, you're the brains of the operation. We know you want to be out there, Bruce. We know you want to be on the front lines fighting. We know that's the place that you would rather be at. And it makes sense because Batman's never one to sit idly by. Batman's done it before, but when it comes down to it, a situation like this, Bruce is there. Even if he knows he's gonna die, he's there fighting. That's why we love him so much. That's why Batman's the best thing coming out of DC Rebirth right now. We love him because of that. The issue here is he also tells everybody, look guys, here's the stakes. This war is going to cost some people everything. Some of you are not going to make it back alive. Some of you are gonna die. That's just, you have to accept that. That's just the way that it goes. But whether you die or whether you live, know that this all goes towards something better. This all goes towards making a much better world. Now, of course, Batman's more or less just kind of forced to stay behind. He's basically left to hang out. The funny thing about this is that Zatanna stays there. Of course, being the magic wielder in the group, she's the one that can kind of help keep Batman protected in case somebody invades, especially Superman, somebody invades Dr. Fate's tower, the Tower of Fate. But then Batman turns around and says, take me to where I want to go. Send me to Oracle. He's like, I don't care how broken I am, send me there. And that's the cool thing. That's exactly what we would expect from Batman. That's exactly what we would expect. He's not gonna hang out. He's not gonna sit back here and watch these events unfold. He's gonna be on the lines, and he's gonna have a controlling hand in everything, right, wrong, or otherwise. Whether it just drives everyone insane or whether it works, in the end, it's always the same thing. Batman always has a hand in what's going on. Keep in mind, he's not fighting, but he always has a hand in what's going on. And so at this point, it's basically this just convergence of forces. We have Superman leading the Sinestro Corps. We have, Guy Gardner leading the Green Lantern Corps, but then we also have some allegiances that are being chosen here, some sides that are being chosen. It seems like Hal Jordan and it seems like John Stewart are on behalf of Guy Gardner, and that's kind of the cool thing here. But the other half of this is, keep in mind, Hal Jordan's loyalty is to Earth. It's not to the Green Lantern Corps, and that's why this works so well, because it's basically Tom Taylor drawing on the parallax era of DC Comics. Hal Jordan's off-planet, Cyborg Superman, and I want to say it was Mongo, I think it was. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. They wipe out Coast City. All right, Hal Jordan comes back, finds out his city's destroyed. He recreates it using the ring. The Guardians of the Universe are like, hey, you can't use your ring for selfish purposes. Come back to Oa to be punished. Hal Jordan freaks out, loses his shit, kills all the members of the Green Lantern Corps, kills all the Guardians of the Universe save Gantlet, and then tries to wipe out the universe in 0 Hour Crisis in Time. It's Tom Taylor building on that whole thing, that if anything, Hal Jordan's loyalties lie to Earth. And so because of this, it's really left to Guy Gardner. And that's kind of crazy because it's a situation that we wouldn't expect. Guy Gardner's the brains of the operation. All right, Guy Gardner's the dude that you send in to an army of 100 people and say, hey, Guy, do what you do best. And he goes in and just crushes everyone. That's the guy, that's the guy that you expect. Guy Gardner, at the same time, though, in this story, is trying to reason with Superman, says, hey, look, calm down, stop letting this get as out of control as it is, back down, basically surrender, come back to Oa, and you'll be put on trial for your actions, but I promise you'll be judged fairly. Superman's response is, you're an embarrassment to the Justice League, you're an embarrassment to the planet, and you're an embarrassment to yourself. Guy Gardner freaks, goes after to attack Superman, he breaks his arm, Superman just throws him. And that's the coolest thing here, because now this is the attack. This is the event that starts the whole thing in motion. But the funny thing about this is, while Guy Gardner is caught by John Stewart, Guy Gardner says, hey man, you got to get Hal Jordan out of there. And John's like, well, why? It's a huge battle between the Sinestro Corps and the Green Lantern Corps. And he says, look, it's a feint. Green Lantern Corps members aren't going to attack. You have a planet with willpower, an insane amount of energy. And what does Mogo do? He blasts the Sinestro Corps, cripples the Sinestro Corps. Now what this does is this enacts the second stage of the plan. What had happened is Guy Gardner had contacted Black Canary, Oracle, and so on and said, when the sky turns green, that's your signal. And so it's this multifaceted attack. Black Canary gets a kryptonite bullet and she's told by Alfred, you've got one shot at this. If you miss, everything that we love comes crashing down. Everything we know comes to an end. And so what we do is we pick up with the Hall of Justice. We pick up with, what's left of the Sinestro Corps. We pick up with James Gordon and all of his guys launching an attack against the Hall of Justice. Now, the cool thing about this is there were, of course you got the Flash around here, and that's kind of the cool thing, is it was really Superman sitting down and saying, all right, guys, there's probably going to be an attack that's going to be launched against us. I want you guys positioned in these different locations to be able to respond. Where Barry Allen goes to save one of the guards, the guard pulls off his helmet and it's Catwoman. Well, then Catwoman turns around and incapacitates him. Damian Wayne responds, and then the two of them start going at it. And so it's just like, it's pandemonium. It's all out chaos, and it's amazing the way this unfolds. But here's a cool thing, and this is why the plot thickens. Here's why things get so cool. In the middle of this whole fight, in the middle of this whole conflict, Lex Luthor tells Cyborg, get out of here. Go shut down the communications so that they cannot have a coordinated attack. The issue with this is that there's no shutting down certain communications, they're shutting down all the communications. And so if Cyborg goes to the Watchtower and shuts down communications, that means that Superman cannot communicate with them. They can't communicate with him. But Lex Luthor says, hey, look, that's the price we gotta pay. It's better to make sure that none of us can talk than to make sure that our enemy can talk. And so because of that, with Lex Luthor basically being subdued by the forces of Jim Gordon, he says, look, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you extremely important. I need to talk to you as fast as I can. Jim Gordon's like, why? And he says, because it's about Oracle. He says, we need to speak privately. And what he tells him is Cyborg is going to trace the program back to Barbara. Now, this is Lex Luthor saying, I know that Barbara Gordon is Oracle. Not only that, I'm her man on the inside. Lex Luthor's been working against Superman this entire time. This entire time, he was the man on the inside. And it's just like, wow. So finally, with the Hall of Justice being taken, we basically just kind of transition back to this continued fight between the various members of the Green Lantern Corps and the Sinestro Corps, but then we're suddenly met with the arrival of Gantlet. Now, let me tell you something, Rob Corps. They were not prepared. The Sinestro Corps was not, Superman was not prepared. The Sinestro Corps launches everything they can at Gantlet, and he's just like, nope. Because you gotta remember, Guardians of the Universe are insanely powerful. They feed on psionic energy. They basically channel the willpower aspect of the emotional spectrum, so it's just like pure energy in this whole thing. But when this goes down, when this happens, when this attack takes place with Gantlet, Carol Ferris seems to be weakened in the attack. The problem with this is that as she's falling to her death, or at least seems like she's gonna fall to her death, of course, Guy Gardner catches her. Now, in the middle of all this, Hal Jordan responds by thinking Guy Gardner's working against him. And so in response to this, Gantlet basically goes to Hal Jordan and says, you are no longer worthy of wielding Green Lantern's light, and takes his ring. Now that's why this is crazy, is because Gantlet's like, you've fallen so fast, I'm gonna take your ring while you're in midair, and you're just gonna fall to your death. It's Gantlet showing he has no love, no concern for the fate of Hal Jordan. It's basically, you're gone, you're dead to the Green Lantern Corps. In response to this, Sinestro basically saves Hal Jordan by giving him a Sinestro ring. And so it's like, it's Sinestro's plan coming together. That was the goal. Sinestro's taking the Napoleon Bonaparte approach. He's like, look, you don't fight all the Earth's superheroes at one time. You don't do that. That's stupid. That's guaranteed defeat. What you do is you divide and conquer. You sway them to your side to the point that they begin to see your view of the world as an absolute truth, and then they follow your view of the world. At the same time, Batman is watching all this unfold. Of course, he's talking to Oracle. He's watching all this unfold, and he says the Green Lantern Corps is being split apart. They're being separated. There's not enough of them, and the Sinestro Corps is basically dragging each of them away. They're leading each of them away. And because of that, the Green Lantern Corps is stretched too thin. It's only a matter of time before they end up being defeated. And that's what's so cool about this, because remember, the Green Lantern Corps fights for the preservation of life. The Sinestro Corps doesn't. That's why they always say in warfare, if you want to win, you have to be willing to do things, the same things that your enemy will do. You have to sacrifice your humanity in order to win the war. Because what's happening here is the Sinestro Corps is taking the Green Lantern Corps to highly populated areas. And so the Green Lantern Corps has to fight on two fronts. They have to fight to make sure that innocents aren't injured, and they have to fight to kill the members of the Sinestro Corps. Where all the members of the Sinestro Corps are doing are fighting the Green Lantern Corps, and they're throwing innocents in harm's way. And so it's incredible to see this unfold, because it's almost like the perfect conflict. The problem with this is that Barbara Gordon begins to realize that there's signals being traced, that Cyborg is basically tracking them down. Now, of course, Cyborg, being a living computer, is able to do this quick, fast, and in a hurry. But remember, Lex Luthor is Barbara Gordon's man on the inside. And so when he was talking to Jim Gordon, he was like, look, man, we got to go to the Watchtower. We have to stop Cyborg if we want to make sure that Barbara Gordon doesn't get caught. The problem with this is I can't bring you there, because if they do, they'll know that I'm a traitor. Instead, you have to make it look like you defeated me, and you have to drag me there. And that's exactly what Jim Gordon does. Jim Gordon basically makes it look that he had defeated Lex Luthor, and then shows up on the Watchtower. Now, here's the cool thing, is when he confronts Cyborg, Cyborg tries to call his bluff and says, hey, look, man, you're a cop. All right, like, sure, I'm a member of the Justice League, whatever. I just hang out here on the Watchtower and keep it safe, keep the seats warm for the Justice League when they get back. But he says, look, you're a cop. All right, you're not gonna shoot anybody. This is Tom Taylor telling us, yeah, he will. Yes, he will. He shoots the metal side of his head and says, do you really want to test that? Because I'll shoot the fleshy side of your head. Now, the reason why this matters is that Cyborg is just like any cybernetic organism. He cannot live without his organic components. And so if Jim Gordon were to basically shoot, the side of his head, the human side of his head, it would kill him, because it would be half of what needs for him to survive, half of it being gone. In addition to this, Cyborg's basically going through, and he's like, look, man, the cancer that you have in your body has basically metastasized everywhere. You've got moments to live. Moments. Maybe, if anything else. Like, that's really all you have. You don't really have anything more than that. He's like, all I have to do is wait you out. Well, in response to this, Jim Gordon freaks. Jim Gordon attacks Cyborg and starts ripping his mask off. And so from here, it's basically, stopping the trace, exactly what it is that Jim Gordon sought out to do. But it's the saddest thing ever because he is talking directly to Barbara Gordon. Of course, a closed channel is open between the two of them, and he talks to her and he says, I'm so proud of what you've become. I'm so proud of who you are and what you're about. I'm so proud of the woman that you've become. After all the adversity that you've faced, after all the things that you've been through, you've become just as strong and confident of a daughter that I could ever imagine. He talks to Batman and says, you're one of the most honorable men that I've ever known. It's Jim Gordon saying his goodbyes. And Batman says the same thing. It was an honor serving with you. It was an honor serving alongside you. It's Jim Gordon saying his goodbyes. And so what happens is the line basically goes dead and Jim Gordon dies. And it's just like, God, it's one of the saddest things that I've ever seen. But from here, we transition back over to Gantlet. We got to get back into the action, guys. As sad as that is, we got to jump back into the action. So we end up picking up with Gantlet. You have Sinestro more or less taunting him like, hey man, our core is better than your core. You cannot stand against the might of us. Well, Gantlet's whole argument is whatever. You guys were mistakes. You guys were failures. Fortunately for me, I can fix those failures. I can rectify those problems. At the same time, we have Black Canary boarding the Batwing and taking off into space in order to confront Superman. Now, of course, Batman contacts her and says, hey, look, you need to be careful when you get there. And she says, why? I mean, Superman's going to be distracted. He says, because Superman might think you're me. And if he thinks you're me, he's going to attack that ship right off the bat. Try to stop me before I can even become any measure of a threat. Now, switching back over to Hal Jordan, it's basically, the remnants of the Sinestro Corps trying to take Gantlet by surprise. Dude, he crushes them quick, fast, and in a hurry. I mean, there is no conflict, where the Sinestro Corps' pride is getting the best of them, where they're saying, we're better than all of you, we're greater than all of you. It's Gantlet saying, no, you're not. You exist because we made you. Sure, you allied yourself with another core, but that's irrelevant. You can be destroyed just as easily as anybody else. And then, finally he takes off into space and applies the same treatment to Superman. He doesn't really destroy him just because Superman's so strong, Superman's so durable, but he basically, attacks him. Now, of course, in response to this whole thing coincides with the arrival of Black Canary. And then, of course, once she's able to vacate the ship before it's destroyed, she uses her canary cry, and manages to incapacitate Superman. But the two of them land in some massive crater. Now, here's the crazy thing about all this is while she's basically telling him, look, I told you that I was going to get my revenge. She even goes so far as to taunt him and to say, I'm glad Lois Lane died before she could see you like this. And it's not enough for Black Canary to say, I'm glad Lois Lane died before she could see you like this. She says, I'm glad Lois Lane died before she saw the real you, because this is who you've always been. It was just a matter of time before you became a tyrant. And using that bit of a distraction, she fires off the kryptonite bullet and lands it square in Superman's chest. With that being said, guys, I'm just messing around. No! People are going to start freaking out and panicking and so on and so forth. But we basically pick up with Gantlet. And remember, Gantlet is continuing to basically obliterate all these different members of the Sinestro Corps. It seems like all is saved, right? I mean, like we look at this and we're just like, yeah, man, all is saved. Like it is Gantlet fighting on behalf of the Green Lanterns. The Sinestro Corps is being obliterated. That's all it took. It took Gantlet to get here and save the day. Not so fast. And the reason why is because in the midst of all this chaos and all this pandemonium, Superman has been chosen by a Sinestro Corps ring. He puts it on, pulls the kryptonite bullet out of himself, and kills Black Canary. Superman officially becomes a member of the Sinestro Corps. Now let me tell you something, Rob. Does he not look badass? Superman as a member of the Sinestro Corps? Damn, son, like, dude, he looks beast. Superman's a beast. I absolutely love this. But the funny thing about this is that Black Canary is celebrating her death. And the reason why is she's like, you lose. Like, you lose here. She was like, I've been recording everything that happened. I've been live streaming it to the world. The world now sees you as a murderer. The world now sees you as a killer. Well, we would look at this and we would say, well, now faith in Superman's lost. That's it. Now, of course, Superman flies into the Green Lantern Corps and just obliterates them all. But while this is happening, we switch back over to John Stewart. And the crazy thing is, where he's continuing to attack the Sinestro Corps, Sinestro goes to him and says, look, John, you can't stop this, man. You have to stop reacting. You have to close your eyes. You have to think, what's best for the world? Is it better to continue this senseless war, or is it better to bring peace to the world? And as John Stewart thinks about this, eventually he begins to kind of succumb. He begins to agree to a degree with Sinestro. The problem with this is that Sinestro impales him from behind with his ring. And so it's just like, really? John Stewart's dead? Not only that, we have Hal Jordan arriving on the scene. And when he asks what the hell happened to John Stewart, Sinestro says it was Guy Gardner. Guy Gardner killed John Stewart. Now, of course, the response of Hal Jordan is to take on Guy Gardner. I mean, literally just start pummeling him. And it's one of the saddest things to see, because despite the fact that the two of them had bumped heads, despite the fact that the two of them had their fair share of arguments, in the end, Guy Gardner had so much respect for Hal Jordan. And he even says, dude, I'm not going to fight you. I will not fight you here. And then Hal Jordan says, fine, and literally rips off the arm of Guy Gardner, takes his ring, and leaves him falling to his death. And so from here, we basically pick up with Batman as he's talking to Barbara Gordon. And Barbara Gordon's whole philosophy is, well, I mean, we're really kind of winning here. Like, we're winning this war to a degree. I mean, sure, we may have lost the battle, but we're winning the war, because now Superman is considered to be, evil in the eyes of the world. It's only a matter of time before he comes tumbling down. Even Batman goes as far as to say, shut off the feed. We do not want people to see this. Barbara Gordon says, why? And he says, because we literally just broadcast footage of Superman murdering somebody live. The world is terrified of Superman. Superman is wearing a Sinestro Corps ring that's powered by fear. He's feeding on the fear of the world. He's literally powered by a planet. In response to this, we basically jump back to Gantlet. Gantlet goes to attack Superman, and there's not a single ounce of damage. Not one. Superman goes after Gantlet, literally plummets him right into Mogo, and sends the two of them crashing into the sun, killing Mogo, Gantlet, and going forward as a member of the Sinestro Corps, having successfully taken out Gantlet and virtually all of his forces. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. Oh my God, this is so good. This officially ends year 2. I told you guys it goes by fast, but this officially brings an end to year 2. God, this is such a good story. But if you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and yeah, okay, post a comment down below, because I wanna know about this. All right, post a comment down below. What do you guys think about Yellow Lantern, about Sinestro Lantern Superman, Sinestro Corps Superman? What do you guys think about him? Because I think he looks amazing. Like, I think he looks so cool. I think he looks so badass. Like, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. But anyway, with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this to an end, and I will catch you all later. Peace.